breathe heavy because I'm sexy and you're lonely. Oh, XJ7, I'm sorry. There's a card-carrying pervert always calling me. Probably someone from Project Blue Book. Anyway, listen close. This case was a scream at the end of a young life. His name, Milton Marblehead. Age unknown. A young man trapped in a predicament he never envisioned or desired. Far from home, face to face with monsters of maniacal modus operandi. He came to terms with his inner nature while facing death and dismemberment. Location somewhere in Idaho, USA. Date, March 2013. An unfortunate series of events had transpired within the life of Milton Marblehead, and sitting in a cold cave somewhere in Idaho gave him plenty of time to contemplate what might have gone wrong in his life. There were no answers forthcoming. He had no idea why such a fate would have befallen him. Milton was a popular kid in high school, being part of the football team, and highly successful at that. In fact, he was being wooed by every college and university possible to join their teams after graduation. Due to that eager anticipation and desire from the Ivy Leagues and other such prestigious schools, Milton's path was paved in his life as people warmly welcomed him anywhere he went in his small Idaho town. No one hated him. No one could hate him. He was destined to be a sports superstar in the big leagues of the NFL, barring injury or misadventure. Yet misadventure had captured Milton and was hell-bent to destroy him. The muscular young man rebelled at his restraints, pulling, tugging, wriggling feverishly to extricate himself. His captors had bound him so thoroughly, with vines twisted together from long grasses, small branches, and other vegetation of the forest. Little room was left for movement. For days, he was made to sit still and witness the unearthly menagerie mingle before him, as they entered and left the cave to force-feed him raw meat and odd nuts, with roots as a side. Milton was at their mercy, and coming to cope with the eventual machinations these creatures had for him, which was certainly death. A shadow covered the boy's face. The eclipse was caused by a terrifying sight. It was the alpha male, the leader of this band of bizarre beasts. A 10-foot-tall humanoid, a primate, a prototype of human form and function, a caveman, an Australopithecus, a Cro-Magnon, a Neanderthal, no! A Sasquatch. It leered and snarled as it bent down to the captive and screamed in frustration. Milton was transfixed with horror at the sight. This thing had entered, dragging a capacious carcass of carrion. It was a dead elk in tow, half mangled by the hunt. After the leader's tirade toward Milton, it turned to easily and viciously dismantle the animal, limb by limb. Finally, the Bigfoot ripped the hide with his bare paws and dug out the innards to eat from them and deposit lumps of offal on the dirt floor. Others joined in, filing in silently, morosely from behind what could have been the mother of this pack or family. She was quiet and obviously subservient. She was patient, with tender eyes looking cautiously and continuously to Milton. Her hairsuit sight was disgusting to the boy. Could this thing be in love with him? That was perhaps why the tall male was so aggressive and distraught. Two children appeared from behind the female, hugging her form, while glaring in fear at the human they had bound in their domicile. Soon, all of them feasted on the elk's shredded flesh and warm blood. Offerings were made to Milton, but he refused. Anger once more poured from the lead male. However, nothing came of it. And soon they departed once more. How long had it been, Milton recalled? Perhaps a week, perhaps 2, maybe more. The time was becoming indefinite as it stretched on with constant darkness. Milton could feel his hairs growing out, his facial hair thickening, and it created a panic in the juvenile human. Hair, to Milton, was disgusting, and caught by these hairy things only reinforced his revulsion. They had smelly, tangled hairs all over their massive bodies. They were covered. It was gross. It was unsightly and perverse. Milton always disliked body hair. So did his mom and his dad and siblings. Grooming was paramount to good hygiene in his family's mannerisms. Milton then recalled when he was taken. It was when he was at his finest on the field, playing American football. After a particularly strenuous stretch of practice in preparation for a Saturday game, the team was walking back to the lockers. Milton was in the rear of the group, having been worn down by persistent drilling. There were woods surrounding that part of the field, and the beast must have emerged from there. 2 hairy arms wrapped themselves around the lad, restraining him completely, covering his mouth, and then lifting him high and carrying him speedily to the furtive cave miles away. And that was that. The massive man-thing was probably the Montana Monster local kids talked about for years. It was seen by everyone except Milton, forever. Hovering on the edges of woods, he remembered the kids in elementary school trying to frighten him or others by claiming it was peering at them from the growth around the playground. Milton would turn to see. Nothing. He figured it was a childish prank to raise the goosebumps on the girls and gullible. Credulity was never Milton's fault, and he never gave credence to those mischievous morons. However, they were true. Even in high school, his football squad often returned to the lockers, babbling about how everyone should watch out for the Montana Mountain Man, a hairy hobo hiding in the hedges, and ready to abduct young girls for fancy and fornication. Milton could only pray his reason for being shanghaied wasn't for seduction. Finally, a moment of conclusion arrived. The family strode back in front of the boy with purpose in their movements. Using his ghoulishly sharp teeth, the alpha male gnawed away at the ropes fashioned to hold young Milton. And the teenager was free. He was free to move a little. As soon as mobility was capable, the father ripped Milton's clothes off. It froze the kid to his core. This was indeed to become a case of brutal molestation and sodomy. Yet, looking down at his legs, Milton was terrified to see them covered in small dark hairs as thick as horsehide, yet strong as toothbrush bristles. The teen's arms were equally covered. It made him lose reason and howl in fright. All these humanoid freaks were infecting him with their DNA. He was becoming like them. They were there to compromise his humanity and make him their own. Pushing aside the Titan, Milton barreled through the rest of the family, knocking them on their asses. His outburst stunned the lesser Squatch, as they merely cowered while he ran from the cave. Down the hillside he plummeted, leg before leg, running as fast as possible to escape before he was consumed by their unholy and ugly state of being. He had to get back to the suburbia he came from, back to humanity, and hope a doctor could cure him. Yet, too late! That gargantuan male was behind him, pushing him forcefully, painfully hard, causing Milton to tumble head over heels until submerged in the water of a nearby pool beside a flowing creek. As Milton rose out of the water, face down, he felt that ungodly thing's hand grip him like iron, encompassing his head and holding it fast. To stare into the water, where Milton could see that awful predator's face staring up at him. And then another emerging beside it, a twin staring over the shoulder of the first. Milton thrashed about, trying to escape the madness around him, engulfing his mind, but there was no way to move. He could only stare until some kind of sanity was regained. And it was then that Milton realized the face he first saw in the water was his own. The large Bigfoot's face was over his shoulder as they both saw their reflections. Milton had become exactly like this brutish and unappetizing cryptid. He was transformed into one of them. He was meant to be one of them. And it was clear that it was so when an unusual form of a smile transpired on the apex male's features. Eyes warmed to the boy. It was a look of relief and love. With inhuman strength, the 10-foot male spun the teen around to face him and hug him tight. The rest of the family were behind their father, looking in joyous and enraptured admiration at Milton. When done with the embrace, the man held Milton's shoulders to separate the man from the captor and look into Milton's eyes, groaning out in a stilted version of American English.
"Welcome home, my son."
The family hugged Milton in a group binding so tight and suffocating that he felt like heaving forth any contents he held. At that moment, trapped between them all, Milton thought back. His mother would always tell him that he was different from his siblings. She would tell him silly stories of being found in the woods during one of his father's hunts. She would laugh and call him their little wild man. It seemed fatuous at the time, just a tease to make him react. Milton's brothers and sisters likewise would try to get his goat when younger, saying he was adopted. Milton never believed any of them. Milton's father would instruct him how to shave from his earliest days, how to shave his entire body, and he was made to feel ashamed of any growth left untended. And it was then, at that unfortunate and sad moment in those distant woodlands, that Milton realized he had been returned to his biological family.
Like and subscribe before I die. And ring the little bell or you will surely go to hell.
Oh, we're telling spooky stories. This is not a spooky story. Oh, there's no way in the house I can say.
It depends how you look at it. It is kind of spooky.
I guess so.
Wait, that's it? That's the end of the story?
That is a